This sleep, eat better, more cardio.
You do still use more fat during exercise than you do during rest because of the sheer amount of energy.
Well, shit. Fuck all of that one, me just say. Shit. Alright. Today we are watch The Science of Fat by this. Full stop. May we hear him say, I'm them people are chunky.
Fat, blubber, pudge. It goes by many names, but its true identity can only be learned by consulting with the All High Council of Nerds. They call it adipose tissue. Adipose tissue is everywhere. It's in your bones, your muscles, your organs, and there's tons and tons of it under your skin. And if you accidentally inhale the contents of your entire refrigerator, it grows. But like, how does your body convert whatever you happen to throw in your stomach into yellow jelly under your skin? And how on earth does going to Hot Pilates every Wednesday get rid of it? To find out, we're going to take a field trip inside this guy's Big Mac. Big Macs and food in general have two parts: big macronutrients and little micronutrients. Micronutrients don't contain any energy. They're just little guys. Macronutrients, on the other hand, contain all the energy in your food, and they only come in a few flavors: proteins, carbs, fats, and alcohol. Alcohol is a bit special, so we're going to ignore it. It also doesn't come with the Big Mac, which is currently in our subject's mouth. The mouth is going to break that Big Mac into a bunch of smaller Macs and add some saliva to make it a nice Mac slurry. Also, some of the carbs are going to get jumped. These guys are called enzymes. Their entire job is to punch macronutrients until they break into smaller pieces. And in the mouth, they have it out for the carbs. After that, the trio
So enzymes then spit. Okay.
slides down the esophagus and into the stomach.
I think we learned that in the primary school.
There we are welcomed by the stomach juices and some of their enzyme pals. Also, everybody's getting jumped by the enzymes. After a couple of hours of your stomach blending your food, it reaches a nice pulp of Mac slush marinated in stomach acid. The food then slowly passes through to the small intestines, where they receive another warm welcome by some fresh pancreas juice. In fact, they're getting so welcomed that they decide to leave. Yeah, that's allowed apparently. They just have to use the door in the intestinal cells. But they're too big. Hold on. Light bulb, let's keep getting clobbered until we're small enough to pass through. This was a terrible idea, but they did it anyway because that's how digestion works. Look, man, I don't make the rules. Eventually, the proteins get beat into amino acids, the carbs get shoved into sugars, and the fats get mangled into smaller fats. Finally, they can all fit through the door and make their escape. There are two paths out.
Say to him and say, like, basically then, if me eat the flour me eat at the end of its digestion, it will go turn into sugars. Probably not like the sweet sugar, but like sugar, like something sugar. That's interesting.
Inside the intestinal cell, a blood vessel with a tiny mousehole entrance, and a lymphatic vessel which is shut with the gates of Bartholomew. The carbs, which are now sugars, and proteins, which are now amino acids, slip right into your blood, which is a straight shot to the liver. But the intestinal cells turn the fats into big bundles called chylomicrons, which are way too fat to go through blood vessels, and instead must go through the gates of Bartholomew. Here it goes through a series of vessels of all shapes and sizes and takes a nice tour of your body until finally, just under your left collarbone, they get spit out into the bloodstream. Now you have a big ball of fat floating around in your blood. Great, but if they just stay like that, you'd die pretty quick. So your body has two teams to deal with these little piggies. Each team is made up of enzymes and molecules that take some fat and break it down into bite-sized pieces. One team takes those pieces and feeds it to your muscles for energy, while the other team feeds those pieces to your fat cells. And the one directing it all is a hormone called insulin. Right after you eat a meal, your pancreas dumps a truckload of insulin into the bloodstream.
Yeah, that's something like spike your insulin and thing like that. Yeah, terminologies.
Insulin's job is essentially to make sure the teams in your adipose tissue are working overtime, and the teams in your muscle tissue have their lazy boys on full throttle. That is, they're relaxing extremely hard, taking a very intense and serious break. This results in the majority of that incoming fat being
Okay, so insulin. Oh, so the spike in insulin is a bad thing because you spike your insulin, the insulin number say, yo, make sure so them man that we're supposed to give the muscle them the fat instead of the fat cells them Yo, not them all. We not use them right now. Spike insulin. That's what that is. Okay.
And cut up and fed to your fat cells as energy for later. When a fat cell gets one of these pieces, it reassembles it into a bigger piece of fat for storage.
That's
Then it gives this
crazy.
big piece as an
That's
offering to
crazy. So yeah, tell me, say the more fat me eat, the fat I make. Oh, wow! Who would have thought? The more fat you eat, the fatter you gonna get. But that's still kind of crazy. Still, why you get the piece or something? We just chop up a fat and make it bite size. You get it though. Now you want to turn it back in a bigger fat. Like yeah, set me up.
the glorious sphere of fat. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is why both this guy and this guy have about the same amount of fat cells. Because rather than creating new fat cells, the same fat cells just keep getting stuffed fuller and fuller and fuller. Of course, even the pros have a limit. The maximum size a fat cell can expand is about 1/700th the size of a banana, which might seem small, but a healthy fat cell is usually 1/2000th of a banana. Once a cell reaches that limit, it sends SOS signals to dormant fat cells and a new fat cell is born. But this is rare, which may come as a surprise to my fellow Americans. And so most of the time, a cell is simply pumped fuller and fuller with fat, which is energy.
But you know, if you're a fox, says some people definitely create some more fat cells because they've never bonded all of that dog.
Saved for later. So if later does come, hypothetically speaking, how does this blubbery energy stuff get used up? It all starts with hormones. When you're hungry, your pancreas releases hormones. When you're exercising, your adrenal glands release hormones. When you're sleeping, your brain releases hormones. And some of those hormones go to your fat cells. But what do they do once they get there? What's a measly hormone going to do to extract all that energy juice?
Yeah.
Nothing really. They kind of just float around until, oh, it seems the hormone has fallen into a devious trap. How unfortunate. This happens because of receptors on the outer layer of your fat cells that are basically on watch for these hormones at all times. When they catch one, they trigger a chemical reaction that wakes up two killer enzymes inside the cell. These absolute machines start systematically butchering the fatty molecules into smaller and smaller molecules, only for them to then be shredded up by another enzyme into little baby fatty acids. At this point, the pieces of fat are so small that they just slip right through the cell walls and leak into the outside world. This is bad because the outside world is mostly water, and fats do not like water. Oh look,
Yep. Island water.
Convenient clump of protein is floating around. Oh look, the fat is now on the convenient clump of protein. Oh look, they're entering the bloodstream. Neat. They float around for a bit until they pass a tissue like this one, which is burning a lot of fat. In this case, it's the heart pumping blood, but it could have also been muscles working or the liver doing liver stuff. These tissues have vacuums, which easily sucks fat right off the clump of protein and into the cell. There it is greeted by another friendly protein and escorted to the mitochondria, the powerhouse of the cell. Unspeakable horrors happen inside that mitochondria. But afterwards, our fatty friend pops out as some ATP, and then it explodes. This reaction gives energy to the cell, and therefore the tissue as a whole. Wow, those muscles must be working so hard to explode so much fat, you're probably thinking. And you'd be wrong. In fact, this guy is sleeping like a baby right now. The more physically demanding an activity is, the less it relies on fats for energy, and the more it relies on sugars, which comes from carbs.
Carbs. And that is why I always say, you know, go to the gym for lose fat. You know, go to the gym for lose fat. You lose fat eating less, because as you see, the more fat you eat, the more fat it will get. Your body break down the fat, right? And then when the fat go back in the bombard fat cell, the fat cell say, no, actually, want it to be fat. Turn it back in a fat. Like what? So cardio, eat less. Eat less. Eat less. Cardio, not the gym. You can't lose weight in 3 months without going to the gym once. Just up your cardio, eat less. As a matter of fact, I feel like that's the way people supposed to start lose weight. Cardio and eat less for like all 3 months, and then or 2 months, and then you invite the gym. You know? Feel like you're better for the mindset. Cause you got the gym, and then you kinda eat good. You not do no one bag of cardio either. So you lose look water weight maybe. And then when you're in the gym and I work out, lift heavy weight, you know, the sugars are used up. You know? Interesting. Don't talk about say yo the gym are gonna be the end all be all of my weight loss journey or this. Sleep, eat better, more cardio.
You do still use more fat during exercise than you do during rest because of the sheer amount of energy.
Well shit. Fuck all of that one me just say. Shit. No, but when me say still stands, yeah.
You're using, but during rest, your body is much more reliant on fat. This has quite a lot of implications when it comes to losing weight. But before we get to that, there is one thing about adipose tissue which I have yet to reveal. A secret so secretive that
yeah, when I'm like just shut off with on screen.
Even the High Council of Nerds didn't know about it until the mid-90s. This layer of blubber under your skin has a direct line of communication with your brain. And it does that by using hormones. Again, each fat cell is constantly releasing a hormone called leptin. Chunky fat cells release a lot of leptin, while small fat cells release less leptin. Leptin treks through your blood all around your body until it reaches the blood vessels in your brain, where it sneaks through and finds your hypothalamus. The hypothalamus was expecting this and keeps track of how many of these guys show up. This is because your hypothalamus is smart. It knows that if there's a lot of leptin, then the fat cells are already fat, and it makes you want to eat less food. If there isn't much leptin, then it knows that reserves are low, and it makes you want to eat more food. Basically, your fat is constantly self-reporting directly to the brain exactly.
So it's like this disease when me hear say somebody did have, well, like them never have. I think them never have no heap of leptin or them something. I don't remember that. I remember, but the thing is, them body them always hungry. Like them body not store fat. I'm just always hungry and then body keep on. It's crazy.
How fat it is at any given moment. And the hypothalamus adjusts how hungry you feel accordingly. And it does this to keep you at a healthy baseline. But if that's the case, then how does something like this happen? When your adipose tissue gets this big, it produces insane amounts of leptin, which should make you have essentially no desire to eat anything at all. And it would if your hypothalamus was just a bit.
So that means that in body never did produce leptin then. Yeah. Somebody never that store enough fat or no and never that produce leptin. And yeah, it did very deadly.
Smarter. See, your hypothalamus doesn't actually know how much leptin is healthy. It only knows how much leptin is normal. So if you're overweight for a long enough time, a high amount of leptin becomes normal. And therefore, your hypothalamus will make you feel hungry. Like,
so you see, dog, bad habits just feed into itself, dog, because over time this become normal, and then the fat person always hungry, and you say, yo, oh, you're so hungry and so fat, because negativity, dog.
Normal. This makes it very, very, very hard to lose weight. Imagine you start a diet, hypothetically speaking, and your body starts tapping into more of your fat reserves. The fat cells start shrinking and therefore make less leptin. Your hypothalamus sees less leptin than normal and makes you hungrier. But you persevere. You trek on. You lose 7 pounds in a week. Then your hypothalamus notices another huge drop in leptin and signals an emergency.
Hunger.
Basically, your brain sets off alarms that you're starving. And because it thinks you're starving, it slows down metabolism to use energy more.
So that means you're gonna start lose fat less. Now what do you do when you start lose weight at a slower pace? Because your body gone in emergency mode. Add little more food, you hear me? Add little more food and still up the cardio. Just add little bit more food and still up the cardio.
More efficiently, which makes weight loss slower. When you're losing weight, your body fights against you to stay overweight. So why is your body so against becoming healthier?
Because they want to survive.
For most of human history, the average person was constantly threatened by one thing: starving. In the caveman days, losing weight meant you didn't have enough food to eat, which meant you were dying. Losing weight was almost never a good thing. That is, not until we got Big Macs, Doritos, and Walmart. We simply aren't built for this. So losing weight is impossible, right? Yeah, pretty much. That's what I would say if I was wrong. The hypothalamus can adjust its baseline. It's just a little shy, which is why the key to losing weight is doing it slowly, very slowly. I'm talking half a pound a week slow. 1 pound a week is also safe, and you can lose up to 2 pounds a week if you're speedrunning. But if you try and go faster than that, you're probably in for a bad time. At this slower rate, your hypothalamus still increases appetite, but it's much more manageable.
Yeah, that go crash. You know, when them start produce less leptin and everybody think you're starved, you go crash.
Giving it time to slowly change the baseline and figure out a new normal. But slowly do what exactly? Should you diet, exercise, pray to the sun god? Well, all three won't hurt, but none of them really get to the crux of the issue. Hormones. Fat will only shrink if there is some hormonal signal to shrink. And this hormonal signal only comes when you don't have enough energy, which is why to lose weight, you have to be in an energy deficit. That means making your body use a bit more energy than the energy you eat. To explain what I mean by eating energy, I must mention the forbidden word which I have yet to utter this entire video. Calories. Calories measure energy, not food. For example, 1 ton of TNT will release about 1 million calories. When we talk about calories with food, we're measuring how much energy your mitochondria can explode from one of our macronutrient friends. So when I say eat less calories, I do not mean eat less food. I'm talking about energy, the macronutrients in the food, which means
it usually correlates. Usually correlates. I just the type of foods though. Yeah, the type of foods. Yeah, me did say eat less food, but that makes sense. Eat less food is just a simpler way. But the type of foods, because some food can be whole heap of calories and it's small. Like the junk food, them whole heap of calories small. You're still hungry. You spike your insulin because I don't got carbs. Yeah, the 1 bag of carbs spike your insulin say, yo, make sure someone send all of them over to the fat cell them. We don't give muscle them. No, yo, tell them when they say them not work today. So insulin spike, you get 1 bag of carbs, spike your whatever, and now you get fat. And then you're hungry again because your insulin send out all of them when I say, yo, we're going to full up your fat stores them and that and that and that. And you just eat that. You just eat a small portion of food there. So now they must say, yo, remember we did say, yo, we're going to full up all of them fat stores. So oh God. They're hungry again, even though you just eat so much calories. You see? But then if you did supposed to eat something like vegetable and them there, with that equivalent there, with them calories there, you would just spike your insulin because I know 1 bag of carbs. You get what I say? So then the insulin will get up and say, yo, we are going to store all of them in a fat, this and that and that and that and that, because, with that probably, with vegetables now. Well, I'd other nutrients, them, vitamins and them some they say, and probably I get some protein too. But at the same calorie content, but it'll keep you full of longer because your insulin no spike and you no gone and them no ship everything gone over and I fat cell them. You think that makes sense? Yeah, that makes sense.
You can eat less calories whilst actually eating more food. But even then, it's not as simple as put out calories and don't put them in. Being in an energy deficit does not always mean you're being healthy. It just means you're losing weight. If you don't ever move from your bed and only eat spinach and kale,
your muscle them go atrophy.
You're in an energy deficit and will lose weight. It's also very unhealthy. If you live exclusively off pizza, but run up mountains and wrestle alligators to burn those calories off, you're in an energy deficit and will lose weight. And still very unhealthy. Being in a calorie deficit will work for weight loss, no matter how you do it.
So you must say basically, you must say lifestyle. Lifestyle are the way you lose weight, the healthy way, lifestyle.
but you should not prioritize your weight over your health. Anyways, you really gotta stop coming through this drive-thru, man. I see you like twice a day. But that's gonna cost you approximately 1 subscribe, and tips are highly encouraged and accepted in the
Is this an ad? Didn't think this is an ad. 5 seconds left in that video. I don't think it's an ad. Okay.
form of likes and comments.
Okay. Great video. Great video. It's not AI, thank you God. Great video. Buy this. But I know what to think. When think when I say a bullshit and think what you must say, yo, we don't count this and that, adjust calories in, calories out. Yeah, if you think that you're wrong on me, right? I'm not care. That was the video. Thanks for watching and bye-bye.